and welcome to the final season 1 episode of Top 5 Nintendo. My name is Jake. I'll be hosting today with my good pal Sam. Sam, today's an exciting day for so many reasons. How are you doing?
I'm having the best day of my life.
What's the most exciting thing? Not to date our episode here, but walk us through it. I know you probably want to talk about it more than I do.
Sure. We can open up by saying that Gen 9 Pokemon is officially announced. It's been anticipated that it'd probably be this year or the next year. But the trailer looks great, and it looks like it's going to be open world. It's going to look a lot like Legends Arceus. Obviously, like a new generation of Pokemon, new starters. It looks like there's people walking around you can interact with, and buildings you can go into, a lot like the main games, but with like the look and the exploration of Legends Arceus. It's a great day.
It is a great day.
I have a smile on my face.
Additionally, we are on our way after this to each get a Pokemon tattoo. We did not know the trailer was dropping today, but that's just an added bonus. But yeah, and finally, of course, last episode of the season. And it is going to be a quick one, but a good one.
Jake, what tattoo are you getting?
What am I getting? The Squirtle Squad looking down a pit that they trapped the gang in.
That's what it is. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that's when they're in a circle.
Yeah, they 2 times in the episode, they build a pit. One time, Ash and friends fall down. The second time, Team Rocket falls down. It's a hilarious moment.
So there's room for interpretation as in who's in the pit.
Yeah, or maybe it's you in the pit.
Aren't we all in the pit in one way or another?
Yeah, and you, what are you getting, Sam? I think you might have mentioned it on a previous episode even, the idea.
I might have. I think I did. I am thinking I'm going to get the Mimikyu tattoo.
Amazing.
Which
You're still not sure?
I'm like 95% sure. Like if I show up and there's like a book of tattoos and one is like, oh, like this is what I always wanted.
Okay.
But as of right now, I'm thinking Mimikyu. I think I explained it on a previous episode, but Mimikyu, for people who don't know, Mimikyu is a ghost and fairy type that kind of looks a little bit like a spooky Pikachu. Almost every generation Game Freak releases like a new Pikachu, like in air quotes, right? You get like the Pachirisus. You get like a Pichu, something that kind of like references the idea of an electric mouse. And you got like Emolga, I forget what generation that is. They're all electric mice. But they never like really caught on the same way Pikachu did. And I think that's like, okay. But Mimikyu, I mean, they had like shirts at Hot Topic that I famously have. That is just a Pokemon. And I think it's because they finally gave it like a backstory. It's not just a Pikachu ripoff.
Right.
And Mimikyu's thing is it's actually doesn't look like a Pikachu. It's not an electric type. You don't really ever see what it looks like, but it wears a costume. It wears a spooky Pikachu costume because it wants people to love it and it's jealous of Pikachu. So basically it's the message of like, don't try to be someone else. You can just be yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you try to be other people will know and it won't work in your favor.
I like it.
It's a pretty cool message.
Yeah. Yeah. Exciting. You want to get into it?
Let's get into it.
I don't think I even mentioned yet, but this episode is going to be the top five Nintendo episodes. So pretty much a celebration of what we've done this season. We're just going to talk a little bit about our favorite moments, I suppose. And I'll start off saying my 5th pick is top 5 Mario Kart items. Mario Kart is a dear franchise to me. I've played it since as young as I can remember. We've of course talked about it in the episode or history with the games, and if you want to hear all about it, you can listen to that episode. But talking about the items was fun because it let me take a trip, at least in my research, down memory lane and remember all like the fake item block. I probably forgot about that before researching this episode, but that was a fun time in my childhood using those pranking friends. Um, Mario Kart in general is just a very fun game to me to play and talk about, and I actually just got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the second time. I sold it originally and just bought it again. I've been playing it pretty much nonstop. Just a very fun time. Why it was my fifth pick? Honestly, it was a little arbitrary, but like I said, I really love Mario Kart. So,
What was the arbitrary element? Like,
oh, just that there's any number of episodes could have been number 5.
oh, sure.
And even like 4 and maybe 3, but I think my top 3 are pretty solid in terms of that.
Yeah. The thing about Mario Kart for me was like I've always played it. I played it since like I don't even know, maybe Double Dash, and I was never super good at it. Almost particularly bad at the game.
Okay.
Just because never put too much like practice into it. It was more just like a party game for me. So that episode was cool because I never really looked at that game in an academic sense. Like, oh, you know what is the best item? Like, how do I use an item and how will that make it the best item?
Yeah.
And so it was cool because I like learned from that, from like researching for that episode. And so it was you're definitely better than me. I think you always beat me, but I did get something out of it that I didn't realize I would.
Yeah, I also, going off that, I also learned what kind of dictates what items you get, which I never looked into.
I didn't either.
But researching this episode, I mean, I knew like, oh, if you're in 10th place, you'll probably get like a king mushroom or a bullet bill. But I didn't know, for example, in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they kind of switched that. So it's not as much, it's not like dependent on your placement, but rather how far you are from first place, things like that. So yeah, it was definitely a fun one to research.
That was a thing I learned too, like right off the bat, because I'm so bad that I get the blue spiky shell.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this must be like the best item. But you can hardly call it the best item when it really will never give you like a winning place advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right with that. Yeah, I don't know. Not much else to talk about, I guess, if you want to give us your number 5, Sam.
So my number 5 is The Legend of Zelda original soundtrack,
Classic.
top 5. Definitely a classic. So for people who have been listening, you might have picked up on Jake has played quite a bit more Legend of Zelda games than I have. I've only played a couple. I really, really like the ones that I have played. But their original soundtracks are also very well known, very well respected. We're both music people. It seemed like a no-brainer to discuss the soundtracks, and more consumable the soundtracks are because they're about 2 hours as opposed to playing maybe like a 30-hour, 40-hour game. So I pitched the idea to Jake, and Jake was like, "No deal." I can't listen to every soundtrack in preparation.
It's a lot of music.
There's a lot of music. It is because not all of them are like officially published. So like Breath of the Wild, I feel like is like 4 hours of music or something. It's incredible.
Yeah, but that's not even really a lot compared to like Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess.
Sure.
Which could go on, I don't remember exactly. I don't want to say a wrong number, but a lot of hours of music.
And then it's like, where do you draw the line? Like Twilight Princess HD, I found that like published score to be like 20 minutes or something.
Okay.
So it's like, what are we comparing? But the music, how it's executed, it's different game to game, which makes it, comparable. And they all use like pretty much the same themes. So I was like, no, we have to do this. This will be the one Legend of Zelda contribution I can make. I can talk about the music at least.
Yeah, definitely.
So then we eventually did it, and hours and hours of listening, and it ended up being pretty good. I mean, I had the disadvantage of not being able to connect certain songs with certain visuals.
Right,
But,
that emotional aspect of it as well.
Yeah. but I feel like I got to like learn more about the evolution, especially like listening to Legend of Zelda 1 soundtrack up until like A Link to the Past, and seeing how like even the music, you see the evolution of video games, of Legend of Zelda, of the songwriting.
Yeah. I mean, also just like expanding with the abilities of new consoles and things like that. Yeah, definitely a fun trajectory to follow and, you know, watch its progression and all that, or listen to. But yeah, that was a fun episode. Knowing me, I'll probably bring it up later, so I don't want to say too much at the moment. But yeah, I'm happy it's one of your top 5.
There you go.
And I guess that brings us to a number 4 that might make you happy. Top 5 Gen 4 Pokemon.
Right.
Gen 4 classic. I love it. Played it numerous times. This was a bit, as far as Pokemon goes, I guess in the same sense that that was your Zelda episode. This was my Pokemon episode.
Sure.
This is one I could talk about a little bit better. Maybe some of the Pokemon you dropped I wasn't too aware of, but I pretty much knew what I was talking about in that one. That was a fun one. Gen 4, another one I kind of grew up with. I had that nostalgia with it, so yeah, it was fun to go back. I haven't played Pokemon 2 recently, so it was fun to research that one and kind of get into the mindset. I think this was like when they like just announced Arceus, or maybe like, yeah, I think so. Or actually I think
There's the remakes, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. So yeah, it lined up well with that. I didn't end up buying the remakes, but they seem fun. Maybe I'll play them eventually. But I still have Diamond on the DS, so I don't feel too inclined to buy a remake when I have an amazing original.
Yeah. I always get a little bit nervous in good and bad ways when we agree on a Pokemon episode, because I get to talk about Pokemon, but then I also have the fear that Jake is going to be upsetting me with his choices, and I won't know how to handle it. So going to Gen 4 Pokemon, I was like, oh, it's perfect. You know, the remake's coming out, Arceus is coming out. For those that don't know, both of those games are centered around the same group of Pokemon, the same region, Sinnoh region, the Gen 4. So we made the agreement, let's do no legendaries. Because there are so many legendaries in that game, and they're all really amazing. Heatran, Darkrai, Arceus, Palkia, like they're all just like the greatest.
It would dominate the list.
Right. And then it'd be like, of course. But then we ended up it was a pretty well studied episode, and I feel like I'm more just like competitive influence. Like I just watch like competitive battles and stuff. So I get all nerdy and talk about the abilities and maybe the stat spreads and move sets, and then you get that balance with, you have more experience with the in-game Pokemon like Bibarel. You know, if you haven't played the actual story in a while, you might forget that Bibarel learns like most of the HMs, the hidden machines. You could surf, use strength, cut things, rock smash.
And I believe that was my number 1 pick.
Possibly. You'll have to listen to the episode. No, I think it actually was your number 1 pick.
Yeah.
And then I was like so upset at Jake that he memed his number 1 pick. But then like it's a great choice.
Essential Pokemon.
Yeah, essential in some regards. Once you get to the Elite Four, you toss them out the window. But that was a good one. And you did have familiarity with them. We didn't have to be like, oh, starters, but keep in mind, you know, Jake knows mostly up to Gen 5.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I limited myself to just like one Pokemon episode for the top 5 list to allow more room. So I, spoiler, did not include that episode in favor of a different one.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough.
But moving on.
Okay. I guess we'll end this half with my number 3 pick.
Well, may I say my number 4?
Oh, did I skip you? I'm so sorry.
You did, and I'll let it slide just this one time. If you don't let it happen again.
A whole season and I still can't do it.
I know. Okay, my number 4 pick is the consoles. That was our first episode that we recorded, and I think first episode we ended up publishing.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is, I have to like really prove myself for this one. We agreed on like, doing this podcast. We came up with the idea when like quarantine was like really at its height, and it was kind of like something that I could like do to socialize, even if it's just one person like in a basement. And I was like, okay, I can do a Nintendo episode, but I would like for a lot of it to be based on like the history of it. I don't know if I would want to just like talk about the newest announcements. I think I'd get more out of it if we go back and discuss like experiences we had maybe like from our childhood playing these games, or even go back further, like the Super Nintendo came out before I was born, right?
Yeah.
And to like have an excuse to like explore more of that sounded like a lot of fun to me. So consoles was perfect because I could like learn about the history of it, learn what made one better than the other, what sold better than the other. So I did a ton of research, and it ended up being like a pretty long episode, if I remember. We had so many fun facts.
Yeah, we were very fun fact heavy back then.
Yes.
I think we were kind of getting into the groove of things, so just to make sure we had enough to talk about. At least, I don't know if you did the same, but I know like I spent hours finding as many facts as I can, and I ended up with like way too many. I think that was like an hour and a half episode because we had more than enough to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, fun facts are more like, of course, they're more objective. So when you don't have like the subjective experience, like I don't, for example, like the Super Nintendo controller, like I've played a ton of Super Nintendo games, but I don't think I've ever actually used a Super Nintendo controller. So what do?
Yeah.
I just list 3 fun facts about the Super Nintendo controller. And it worked. And it came out pretty good. Like there was good information, but it was our first episode. So I think we were kind of like, do we pause here? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, is this long? Is this short? But it was fun.
Yeah, definitely a solid episode to start with, and came out surprisingly well for the first one. I don't know if I've asked you this, but do you have any podcast experience before this?
Absolutely none. I almost like, I've tried getting into listening to podcasts before, and there's a couple that I like, but my taste is like the topic has to be like super specific to my interests. Like I don't really like podcasts that are just people talking just to talk.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I haven't like done, I mean, I did like one, like I guested on like my friend's podcast where we talked about nothing, and I was like, I don't really know what to say.
Right. Okay, cool.
What about you?
Yeah, I kind of did a podcast for a class, and that was about it. I mean, I listened to a lot of podcasts. Honestly, the past 2 years, I've been listening to podcasts way more than I've been listening to music, which is, a little funny because I'm majoring in music business. But I think I kind of like musicked myself out after like just years of like going from one band to another and like trying to find my way with like what music I enjoy listening to and what fits like the culture I surround myself with and things like that. So I don't know, I just tire myself out with music. Podcasts, I really enjoy it. I listen to a wide variety of different podcasts, but usually it's like history based, like a lot of business type podcasts, a lot of like what happened this day in history, a lot of like looking into an album or talking about a movie or things like that. So that's what I like. So I definitely had a bit of experience going into this, although not quite a bit recording myself doing a podcast.
Sure.
So I think definitely like in the beginning it was a little awkward, a little, like you said, not knowing where to like pause and things like that. And I think we've definitely gotten more comfortable with it.
I think so. Yeah, it's funny doing a podcast because it's like, we know each other. We have plenty of experience talking to each other. But in a podcast, it's like you're talking to another person and then like an invisible audience that's like right next to you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is weird. Obviously, we talk like pretty much every day, but this is like a very official thing where we sit in front of mics and we have these headphones where we hear ourselves and everything sound like it's very different than just a casual conversation. So trying to bring it back to just feeling like a casual conversation is something I think we've developed over the season.
Yeah, I'd say like after even the quality too. Like we had like your like washing machine going
Yeah.
right in the basement
Yep.
at some point, and
That's true. Yep. And now we sound a lot better. We have
Yeah.
my own apartment and things like that.
we're champions. Yeah,
Yep. All right. Well, now my number 3.
please do.
Yes. Top 5 Breath of the Wild towns and villages. Another classic episode. I love my Breath of the Wild. I just 100% of the game like this, maybe last week, and it was fun. It was really fun because when we did this episode, I haven't played Breath of the Wild for a while, so this gave me an excuse to get back into it. Just like casually explore all these areas and towns and like take note of like when you're like playing the game and you're immersed in it, you might not notice like things are just hitting you. You're not like necessarily acknowledging everything or like perceiving everything. But when you're like playing it to experience this town specifically, you're like noticing the music and noticing like what foliage are in different towns and what like people like what people are in the towns, like who makes up the towns, you know, children running around in certain towns and things like that. So it's definitely fun to kind of play the game with that viewpoint going into it. Bit of a different experience than just playing the game just to play the game, at least for me. But yeah, that was fun, and I honestly don't remember where we ended up on the final top 5, but I think we disagreed quite a bit, or maybe not disagreed, but had different experiences with the game. So that was fun too. I mean, that's just another thing about Breath of the Wild. You can play it in any way you want to play it, so everyone's experience is different. So yeah, I mean, that was fun to talk about as well.
Yeah, because we definitely wanted to do a Breath of the Wild episode, but it was like, what are we gonna do a top 5 of? Like, what is measurable in that game?
Mhm.
You know, towns seemed like a pretty good choice, and there's not too many. It's Breath of the Wild, not Breath of the Villages. You know,
Yeah.
so but then it was like, oh, it's pretty limited. You know, the villages.
Mhm.
So I wasn't sure how it was going to play out, and then I ended up just through a little research, like finding, oh, you know, they all have like a lot to offer. Each village, they're like designed really intelligently. Like
Mhm.
each village has their own culture. You know, what are the bird people called?
The Ritos.
Yeah, the Ritos. Their village is like vertically stacked, right?
Yeah.
Like there's features like that, and then like the Gerudo village
Mhm.
is like kind of mountainous, and they all like vastly have different.
Do you mean
terrain.
the Gorons is on the volcano?
Thank you.
Gerudo is in the desert.
Okay. The Gerudo in the desert is amazing because you can kind of get a sense of like, you know, social status throughout, and it feels like immersive and real. And then the Gorons are in the mountain.
The volcano.
Yeah. And that's awesome because you like, you have a sense of like, oh, we climbed the mountain. Like there's topography, right? It's
Mhm.
not just like flat
Mhm.
land.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's beautiful, especially because like a lot of people say this, and I agree. Like a really cool thing about Breath of the Wild is vertical exploration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
The
like
ability to climb.
yeah,
Never available previously in a Zelda
right.
game.
And it gives you like a lot more options, and the fact that you know even like a place like the Goron's village,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get there by doing that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean you can. Well, that's the fun of it. There is a path that follows up the mountain, but then you're facing a lot of enemies on the way, or you could just climb. Climbing is tedious, and some people would rather, you know, be involved in the combat rather than just
Sure.
climbing endlessly for a while.
You know what's funny is so not Nintendo, but when I got Skyrim, I don't know if you remember this, but you start off in like the one
Yes.
village,
Yeah.
and then you have to go around a mountain to get to the
Yep.
next one. But I was like, oh, point A to B, I'm going to
Straight
climb
line.
over the mountain.
Yeah,
And I was like, they made this so difficult.
I did the same thing.
You did the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then I found out you can just go around it.
Mm-hmm.
but different strokes for different blokes.
Yeah, I spent so long trying to find the path through this mountain. And it just did not exist.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading that you actually can get to the tip of that mountain somehow. I haven't put too many hours into Skyrim, so I don't really know. But
the tip of the mountain has, I think it's called like Notch's pickaxe. It's like it was it's like an Easter egg relating to like Minecraft. Like the guy that made Minecraft, and you get like that Minecraft pickaxe.
That's so funny. I was just watching a documentary about that guy yesterday, and I don't want to talk poorly on him, but it's just a weird story if you want to look into it. Because he sold the game for like $1 billion to Microsoft, and then had nothing to do and didn't know what to do with all his money, and it's kind of sad.
He blew it all?
No, he blew a lot of money, but you can't blow $1 billion.
Yeah.
I think it was more than that even, but he bought a house in Hollywood Hills. He was throwing parties with like everyone who's in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Everyone knew him there for his parties, and then he like just sat around and like tweeted sad tweets like, "I'm so lonely and money has ruined my life."
Oh my
God. Things like that. And then like some like problematic tweets as well that I think they ended up like removing all like mention of him from Minecraft.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stick
Weird
with
story.
Nintendo, kids. Stick with Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can play Minecraft on Nintendo nowadays.
Right.
And I never got into that, but my brother tried convincing me for a long time.
Yeah, I did get into a bit of Minecraft. I think I just played it like on my laptop, on my MacBook.
Yeah.
And I did my thing on it. It was cool. And then I was done, and then it's like, oh, they added to it. There's this and there's that.
Right.
It's like I have different games I like to play. I'm not just gonna keep revisiting this game just because they're gonna continuously add things.
I played it on my iPad way back in the day.
I played plenty on my iPad.
That's about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take a quick break. We'll be right back, guys.
Hi there, I'm David.
And I'm Kate.
And we're the hosts of another Zelda podcast.
There are so many good podcasts out there, and some of them in particular concern the Legend of Zelda.
That's right, Kate, and we are another one of them. That is actually the name of our show, Another Zelda Podcast.
And in our show in particular, we talk about some of our favorite dungeons, characters, boss battles. We have top 10 lists.
Yeah, we do deep dives on game design and production aspects of the different Zelda games.
And we talk about our own experiences. We do some review episodes, talk about our challenges, our struggles, and our victories.
That's right. Really just almost anything that has to do with Zelda, we like to talk about it. A new episode comes out every other Friday, and you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube.
And you can also check out our episodes on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com.
That's right. All right, we will see you there.
Okay, bye.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
Where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of episodes. Our library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay, so head on over to studiodemandsit.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
Hey guys, we are back. The last episode of the season, and Sam is about to toss us his number 3.
I would love to. My number 3 pick is Smash Bros. Games.
Nice.
Smash Bros. I probably spent the second most time with for Nintendo franchises. Like I played plenty of Pokemon, but then Smash Bros. Is like whenever I'd had people over, we'd play Smash Bros. I mean, they make it like every console release. And it's like the Wii U. I got the Wii U so that I could play Smash Bros. 4. And we talked.
You got the Wii U just to play Smash Bros?
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's
I don't think I played a single other game on the Wii U.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, of course I've gone back and played Wii U games, like especially the ports that made it onto the Switch.
Right.
But in terms of what I played on the Wii U, literally just Smash Bros. 4.
Nice.
Yeah, and I played a bunch of it. It was great. I had a great
Yeah.
time. And it worked for a top 5 episode because there's 5 games. Like we considered Smash 4, the Wii U and the 3DS version to be one game. And that leaves us at 5. And I was like, oh, let's just order it, and that's great because we can literally just talk about every Smash game.
Yeah. That I like that it was just 5.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, so we didn't have to leave any out, and kind of just put it in the order we wanted to put it in. I think it was a little bit similar to like the consoles and controllers episode in that sense. Right?
Well, it
Or
was
maybe
like,
we had to leave 1 or 2 out in those. But
Yeah.
it's pretty similar in that sense that it wasn't like such a huge thing to research. It was an easier episode to do and a fun one to talk about, especially because like we talk about Smash Bros. In like every episode. Like
Right.
everything comes back to Smash Bros.
no, you're totally right because I didn't have to do too much research. I did just for fun and especially to learn about the history of it. But it was like I could just draw from my own experiences entirely with like the whole franchise because that whole franchise has like always been by my side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that worked, and it wasn't like super arbitrary. Not to diss, ranking the Pikmin, but there's only 5 Pikmin. You need them all the same.
That's a better comparison.
Right. Smash Bros. There's 5 Smash Bros, but each game they kind of try doing something a little different, maybe a little bit better. Sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better. So that was a fun one. More excuse to talk about Smash Bros. And I feel like we ended up talking about Smash Bros. We did characters, we did the games, and pretty much every episode we find a way to relate that episode to the Smash Bros. Move sets or whatever in the game.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And on the record, I have to defend Pikmin. I enjoyed that episode. I love that game. I'm just
I defended too, but there was self-aware irony to the fact that we're ranking them. It's a difficult task.
But we didn't even agree though, so I think there is something there.
That's fair.
All right, yeah. I agree. Pretty much everything you said. I don't know if there's much to get out to that, but
Thank you, Jake.
oh, you're welcome. I guess we'll jump into my number 2 then. My number 2 is top 5 mascots. This was an interesting one. Guess we had to like kind of self-define what is a mascot, what is like a main character, what is a protagonist, like what differentiates those, if anything does. But this kind of like mascots, picking the top 5 was so interesting because it's like, are you just looking at them in the game? Are you looking at how they represent Nintendo as a company? Are you looking at like how they stand in the culture of like, this country or whatever? A lot of things to take into, a lot of things to think about when picking the top 5, So I think that was definitely like one of the more difficult ones to really nail down because I love Zelda, but do I want to put Link above Mario?
You can't.
A little silly. I love Metroid, but Samus doesn't really do much for the culture. It doesn't sell too well. So, a lot of things to consider there. It was a fun episode though, because it's just like the best of the best, We're talking about the best of each franchise.
Yeah, I actually I just explained that episode to a friend who was like, "Oh, what is top 5 baddies? Like, you have an episode called that? Like, what is a baddie?" And just how they like make their games and make their characters. It's Nintendo, of course. It's interesting because let's say top 5 main characters. What like now is
Right.
Ash like a main character,
exactly.
right? Who's the main character in Mario Kart? Who's the main character in Smash Bros? That's not really the point, A lot of these games don't have main characters like that. and that's it's like mascots. It's like the face. You know, Pikachu was never a main character.
Right.
Maybe like Detective Pikachu, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but he's a mascot and he's one of the best
Exactly.
mascots.
Exactly.
Just kind of in the same sense of like top 5 baddies. Well, they're not really like meant to be explicitly villains, as I see it. They're antagonists, but I don't think Nintendo wants to brand like Bowser or Bowser Jr. as
Right.
like an evil villainous character that you should never, you know,
Especially more recently.
empathize. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Although, I mean, I think baddies, I mean, I don't know the exact definition, but I think baddies could refer to like any opponent in a game, essentially.
Right. It's an antagonist, but I think they're trying to remove the connotations of like they're
It's
like
not a villain.
evil, right? Right.
Mhm.
Because then what kid wants to be Bowser in like Mario Strikers? You know, if they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm the bad guy. I don't want like my sibling to be the good guy, and I'm, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you got a point. Yeah. Well, is baddies on your list? You're talking a lot about baddies.
No, I just in celebration of the show. You know, this
Okay.
was like,
Yeah,
as I
yeah.
think, did we ever like address that? Like, what are, you know, what makes that criteria the criteria of a baddie?
In the episode, I don't recall.
I don't recall either.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd have fun bringing it up.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think we might have just assumed people knew, but that's a fair point.
Because I didn't. And then you were like, hey, Sam, like, just so you know, they call them baddies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've never heard that term until I started listening to like video game podcasts and YouTube videos and things like that. But I mean, in the gaming community, it's pretty like ubiquitous. Everyone knows what a baddie is. But yeah, I guess that's a fair point. But not everybody is so into video games.
I feel like doing the episodes, I almost like learn as much as like what someone
Yeah.
might learn from listening to this.
Yeah, definitely. Some of these episodes, I feel like that for sure. Not so much as Zelda episodes. Which, wait, did you say your number 2?
No, not yet.
Okay, I was
Uh-oh.
doing
You're
it.
about to spoil something?
It was a good gateway to my number 1.
Hold that thought. My number 2. So this is where I placed the Pokemon episode. I did Pokemon starters.
Nice.
I think it was like, okay, so we did the top 5 legendaries. It was pretty good. It was fun. There's a lot to pick from. Gen 4, of course, was also great. Now starters is like the bread and butter of Pokemon, right? It's like where they make their merchandise. It's like the first Pokemon for every generation that people are discussing.
Right.
And it's like, who's the best starter? Who are you gonna choose? You know, like they're like your number 1 in every playthrough. And it was fun to talk about. And especially once Pokemon introduced like the hidden abilities, because before like Gen 5, all the starters had the exact same abilities. The stats were a little bit different, but generally like all the grass types were like not super fast. Like Sceptile was fast, but they were all like okay fast. They could take some hits. The fire types were more like offensive attackers, blah blah blah. And then the abilities got introduced. We got to talk about a little bit like that. And I was like, oh, Cinderace has an ability that changes its typing whenever it uses a move.
Right.
And it was cool because I feel like I got to like just like tell you about like cool things I know about Pokemon.
Yeah.
You got to talk about like memories you had playing Leaf Green. There was a little bit of back and forth. It was a happy time for both of us.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those episodes that I learned a lot. Like you mentioned earlier, I didn't really play past like Gen 4 or 5, so I didn't really, it was hard to speak on those, but you were able to at least, and you probably taught me a few things in that episode. I was just watching a video about like what's the first, was it like Blue and Red, the first games?
Yeah.
So it was like speed runs for Blue and Red.
Okay.
And I didn't know that like the starters, I don't know if this is still the case, but at least in Blue and Red, they had like, it was like their stats were random. Like it was like from 1 to 15 each stat. So it was random each new game. So like these speedrunners would keep restarting their games until they got like a Pokemon, like a starter with like above 12 for each stat or something like that.
Oh yeah. That must be referring to like the the IVs of a Pokemon, without just like being really boring and explaining like like hidden stats in Pokemon.
Right.
Every Pokemon has like different genes, is a simple way of putting it.
Yeah.
They have like randomly assigned IVs that determine like their stats, and it ranges from 0 to 31 for every stat.
Okay.
So
In this one, they said 0 to 15.
Okay,
But maybe it changed.
I think in Gen 1 it might be 0 to 15.
Okay.
And then they probably just like effectively doubled it
Mhm.
after Gen 1. I don't know too much about like, the stats in like Gen 1.
Sure.
So that's interesting because that seems kind of a lot of work to be like
Yeah.
restarting. I never really got that. Some people like to like shiny hunt starters by like soft
Right.
resetting
Yeah.
their game every time, and it's like, I don't know, like, okay, you get a shiny Charmander.
Yeah.
Like, was it worth? I don't know.
No,
I was never a big shiny
definitely.
hunter.
Definitely. I don't know if I've ever even gotten a shiny Pokemon in any Pokemon playthrough I've done.
You never got a shiny Pokemon
I
before?
don't think so.
They're like almost impossible to find, because it's like
Yeah.
it's like 1 in almost 5,000 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never happened to me.
I like weirdly always get like 1
Yeah.
for each generation that I play.
Well, that's nice.
'Cause
Because
I
you probably put a lot more hours into
Yeah,
it than I
yeah.
have.
Yeah, because I remember like Legends Arceus, I found a shiny Pokemon like my second day of playing.
Right. But I think it's a little easier in Arceus, right? There's more shiny Pokemon running around.
I think like the base odds are the same,
Mm.
but the shiny hunting methods allow you
Okay.
much better chances.
Okay.
So I did it just like raw odds and found it, and then
Awesome.
and then Sword and Shield, I found a shiny like the first hour of gameplay.
Whoa.
It was like ridiculous.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's not impressive because I didn't do anything.
Whoa.
I didn't like try, but it was
The Pokegods were on
the
your
Poke Gods were on my side. Exactly.
side.
They rewarded me for getting it at midnight and just playing it right then.
You
I
actually got it at midnight? That's insane.
I physically like went to
Went to
GameStop
GameStop?
at midnight, got it, and then
Wow.
played it.
That is something you probably will never experience again.
I know, never.
Yeah.
We were like me and my buddy. We were the only ones at the GameStop.
Right. Yeah. Nobody does that anymore. But I
Right.
remember like people would not be in school the next day when like a Call of Duty came out.
Oh yeah, when X and Y came out, that was like Gen 6 back in like 2013. There was a line like at midnight,
Right,
and I was like,
exactly.
of course I'm gonna be in line waiting for it, and I got
Yeah.
it. Um,
Especially when they had
Yeah.
like a limited quantity of like posters that they would give to the first like 100 people or whatever. People would definitely like be hype on that.
that was like way cooler.
It
I'm
was.
sorry, but
It
like
was.
physical media
Yeah.
is just cooler.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I
Yeah.
always try to get physical. Games, music, any of that. Cool. Well, finally my number one then.
Take it away.
Zelda original soundtracks. This one was fun for me in a way that was probably different than for you. In that, aside from everything you already discussed, because awesome experiences there, just listening to the soundtracks and comparing them and all that. But this is like the only episode I really edited. I put the songs in each, like every time we talked about a song, I edited it in there. I put some like fun sound effects and things like that. If you haven't listened to that episode, I put so much effort into it. Please listen to it. It sounds great. And I had a lot of fun with that. I wish I could have edited every episode the way I did that episode. I just don't have the time. But it was fun to push myself there and break some boundaries with this show that we haven't done before. And I think it created like a very much greater like immersive experience than any of our other episodes. Which I would probably only be willing to do with this old episode anyway. But yeah, it was a lot of effort, but I think it paid off. It was fun making that one. It was fun listening to soundtracks of games I haven't played yet. Although I couldn't really connect with them in the same way, I don't think any of those made my list. It was cool just to see, because I never listened to soundtracks of games I haven't played, so it's like it was a new Zelda experience for me, which I don't get a lot of nowadays. So that was awesome too. And it was definitely tricky for me to actually make that top 5 because I love all of them.
Yeah, that was beautifully put. I had a similar experience on a more extreme level because of the little Zelda experience I've had comparatively.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, this is like my introduction to a lot of these. And
Real quick.
yes.
When I thought you meant it was more difficult for you at first to make the top 5 list. I'm like, how is that possible, Sam? But yeah, no, that's fair. A lot of new Zelda experiences for you, I'm sure.
Yeah. Like Ocarina of Time, I really haven't played much of. I think I played a demo as a kid. And that soundtrack is like, oh, there's this great cover of it that I watch all the time on YouTube, and it's like a progressive rock
Yeah,
cover
you've
of
been
it.
sending me YouTube links. So
Yes.
I appreciate it because I love it.
They're
I
so
love this.
good.
Sometimes I just throw on Zelda music, just,
To
put
vibe out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I texted you like 2 weeks ago. I was skating to Zelda music.
Yes, the Ocarina of Time soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think it was like number 5 on my list.
Okay. Ocarina of Time. Yeah.
Yeah, in that like week of listening, like it did sit number 5.
Okay.
I think it may have grown a little bit higher,
Nice.
like as as it sits with me.
Yeah.
So that was good. It was a fun episode, and I admittedly did not listen to that whole episode, so I didn't really get to like appreciate it.
Well,
Maybe on the drive over to the Pokemon tattoos. Well,
yes, we could throw
we'll
it
do
on
it
in
on-
the background.
yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Okay,
Number 1, Sam.
my number 1
The final number 1 of the season.
would be the controllers. And for a simple reason, it was because it had to do with like I said, I really want to be able to discuss the history of Nintendo and kind of like the progression of what Nintendo has made. And consoles was a great first episode because that was exactly like what we were doing. We were discussing like the Nintendo products on the most literal level. But it was our first episode, so we had a little bit of learning to do. And controllers, I feel like it was like 4 or something. It was a couple episodes in, and it was almost like a redo for consoles.
Yeah, with a little more experience.
A little more experience, and it was like a lot of fun for me. And I don't think any of the controllers made the list, but it was also fun to just like learn about the other controllers, or just like something like the Wii Fit balance board you don't think about as a controller.
Yeah,
but it is,
Donkey Kong bongos.
The bongos, like the duck hunt rifle.
Yeah.
What's the other fun
Now
ones?
we have the leg strap for the Switch.
Yes. Yes. All controllers.
Yeah. The Mario Kart wheel.
Okay. Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
wheel. Even and the Switch is interesting because it kind of just like turned the idea of a controller on its head, where it's like, oh, do you use 2? Do you connect them into like a single controller, or do you like use one and turn on side? So it gave us like more to talk about for each console, and an excuse to talk about certain games in connection to the controllers. It was, I think I got the most spiritually out of that episode.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun one. It was interesting because I don't think I've ever touched a NES or a SNES IRL, but like you said, I was at least able to learn about like why they were made the way they were. Like it was so interesting. Like when the NES came out, the gaming industry was used to like these arcade consoles with 20 buttons on it. So to make it into one D-pad and 2 buttons, 2 buttons, was quite a huge change. So like just learning about the history and things was very enjoyable for me.
A good time.
Yeah. And then ultimately making that, I think narrowing it down for me was a bit easier from like an objective standpoint, since I don't have those experiences maybe.
Totally.
But yeah, definitely a good episode. Not quite my top 5 on the surface, but you just described it beautifully. So I do respect the pick. Nice pick, Sam. Yeah.
Nice pick to you as well, Jake.
Thank you.
But I did win with the final pick.
Okay. Well, we're not going
Checkmate.
to make a actual top 5 here for this episode because it was more of a celebration. So no,
And it'd be impossible because every episode is number 1.
yes, exactly. Thank you, Sam.
Snaps to myself.
Snaps to you. Yeah, so wow, okay, I guess this is it then.
This is it.
I want to give a huge thank you to David of 65 Media who picked up our podcast before we even recorded
published
the first
anything.
episode,
I think we
maybe.
recorded like 2 episodes.
We did? Okay. But he loved the idea. He loved our banter and things like that. And we love David for that. We also love everyone who ever listened to anything we put out. It's been quite a journey this season. We've learned a lot about video games and podcasting in general. And we're so grateful that you guys joined us for this journey. If you are interested in anything we just talked about, you can listen to those full episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, maybe iTunes, whatever you listen to podcasts on. I think it should be YouTube as well, whatever. If you want to reach out to us, you could follow us on Top 5 Nintendo with the number 5. Top 5 Nintendo on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think it's just those 3 for now. We have an email if you want to reach out to us, top5nintendopod@gmail.com, also the number 5, so top5nintendopod@gmail.com. Sam, if people want to find you, where are you on Instagram?
I am Sam__Ansa, spelled ANSA.
Beautiful. I am at Jake Naroden, Naroden, on the Instagram if you want to chat or just give me a follow or anything like that. I don't want to end it, but I think that's it.
I think we have to end it.
All right.
Thanks
Wow.
everyone for listening.
Thank you guys so much. It's been beautiful. Bye.